All right, so today we're going to go over how to do a bunch of basic functions in Excel, data analysis, creating formulas, graphs, and such. I'm using the most current version of Excel as downloadable through Drake's IT website. All of you have access to this as part of coming and being students at Drake. The instructions for how to download it are in the Excel guide worksheet or Word document that's posted on Blackboard. I'm using Windows 10 as my operating system. If you're using Mac, your UI is going to look a little bit different. The toolbars up top and whatnot are going to look a little weird, as well as if you're using a different version of Excel. So for simplicity, I recommend downloading the software that you have available through Drake. So this is a video for part one. There's another one, a short 10-ish minute video about part two for the first lab report that you guys are going to do this semester. So this is the part one data. I probably have way more data than you'll actually have, but this is the data for the beaker, the graduated cylinder, the graduated pipette, and the volumetric pipette. These are the densities calculated in grams per milliliter. So up out of this data set, these first three I'm gonna call mine, the ones that I collected. I'm just gonna highlight them yellow for now, so I just remember that those are mine. And your report asks you to calculate an average and a sample standard deviation for your data set as well as the class as a whole. So I'm gonna start by doing the class as a whole. So to sort of note what I'm calculating, I'm gonna type average and standard deviation. And you'll notice that now the standard deviation text is creeping into the next cell. So to fix that, you can either click and drag between two columns up top. So I can do this and sort of fix it that way. Or if you want to snap it to the correct size, if you double click between the two of them, it will automatically snap to the appropriate size of all of the text in the cell, right? So to calculate average and standard deviation, to calculate anything in Excel, you click the cell you want to do it in and you hit equals to start telling it a formula to calculate. There's a lot of pre-programmed ones, averages, standard deviations, common functions like that. So I'm gonna start spelling the word average and then, oh, hey, look, there's the average. If I double click this, it will now prompt me for a bunch of numbers to calculate an average of. So I'm just gonna click and while holding, drag all the way down through all of the numbers and hit enter to calculate my average, right? So the average of this whole data set is 0.708 and some change, right? I can also do that for standard deviation, equals ST. Okay, here's a bunch of stuff. The one we want is this guy. We're doing sample standard deviation, so standard deviation.s for sample, P for population. So click that, drag through all of the numbers again, clicking and holding while dragging, and then hit enter, right? And I can do that for the next column over. I can do that for the graduated cylinder. Click over, type equals AV, click and drag through all of these numbers again, hit enter. But that's kind of tedious. The advantage of working in spreadsheets like Excel is you can copy formulas. So I'm gonna click and hold over these two cells, and then you can either copy and paste. So I just hit Control C, I'll scroll over Control V, and it will copy this formula. So here was calculating the average of cells B2, which is that guy, which is displayed here, through B22 here, and the standard deviation of B2 through B22. Now that I've copied that formula over, it'll keep the cells relevant to which column we're in. So now it's calculating C2 through C22, right? Another way to copy paste formulas is to select the cells that you have the formulas in. And if I scroll down to the corner, you'll see the white plus mark turn into a thin, narrow black one. If I click and drag, click and hold and drag, it will now calculate or copy that formula over and calculate it for every single column, right? So I now have average and standard deviation calculated for each of these pieces of glassware. We can see as we go sort of across, our standard deviation gets smaller and smaller with each piece of glassware. So the precision in the glassware seems to be increasing as we go from beaker to volumetric pipette. Another thing you can do in Excel is create your own formulas. So I'm going to calculate the relative standard deviation. You don't have to do this for your report. I'm just showing you how to create your own formulas in Excel. And so what the relative standard deviation is going to say is, well, okay, here we have a standard deviation. What percentage of our average is that? So these are actually in percents. So I want to add to this. So if you notice, I clicked it and went up top, and I can come in here and type percent, right? And again, it's impeding on the next column over. So if, depending on how you want this to look and whatnot, you can double click here and it'll spread it back over. So equals to tell Excel we're calculating something, and I want this to be a portion of the average. So expressed as a fraction, or sorry, expressed as a percentage. So here's my standard deviation. I'm going to divide that, which in Excel is a slash, by the average, and then multiply by 100 to convert it into a percentage. You'll notice I typed an asterisk in for multiplication. Division is a slash, and then plus and minus would be add and subtract. But if I hit enter, okay, cool. So this standard deviation is about 18% of our average. Just to demonstrate that if I type an X in here instead of a asterisk, Excel is going to now give me a warning that something's up with it. It can't actually calculate this because we have mixed letters with numbers, and Excel does not do that well. So I'm going to come undo what I just did and convert it back into an asterisk, right? Oop. Cool. I can then click and drag this over to copy it over as well. But yeah, that's sort of how to create your own formulas in Excel. You'll need to do that at various points throughout the semester, right? I can then do this same thing for my standard deviation of my data set and the average. So I can come down here and type average standard deviation, which actually is kind of a waste of time. I can just click and select these three boxes, copy them, come down here, paste them, right? So this will be the average of my 3 data points for my graduated cylinder. And then I'll do the standard deviation, sample standard deviation, the .s of those 3 data points. Now you'll notice in the top left corner here, there's a little sort of green flag. What that's doing, Excel is warning you that, hey, this cell, how you're calculating it, is different than the cells nearby, or it's referencing a different data set than the cells nearby. In this case, it's fine. I know exactly what I'm doing. But it's a good warning to you to say, oh, hey, cool. If like this guy was marked with a green flag, I'd be concerned because this is supposed to be referencing similar data to the ones near it. It's just a way for Excel to warn you that, hey, this cell is different than the one near it. Is that intentional or not? You may have missed a keystroke or something, or selected the wrong box, you know, whatever the case being, right? And I can also, again, come in here and reference and convert the standard deviation divided by the average into a percentage to see what my relative standard deviation, right? So in this case, my standard deviation is significantly smaller than the class average, so I've got a pretty precise set of data compared to the average, compared to the class data. And then again, I can click and drag these over to copy the formula, and you'll notice that it's going to reference again up here cells C2 through C4, D to E, etc. Right. I'm also just going to highlight this in yellow to reference, okay, that's my individual set of data. Right. All right, cool. So we've covered how to sort of do some basic stuff and calculate either pre-programmed functions in Excel or create our own. So now on to graphing. Every graph that you make in this course specifically is going to be a scatter plot. So I got to make myself some room here really quick. So I'm going to cut and paste these over. Now I'm pointing this out right now that this value for this average is 0.919. So if I paste this over, I've now shifted a column over, and Excel automatically shifts the calculation as well, right? So all of the data was in column C2 and it was averaging C2 through C22. Now that I've copied or cut and pasted the data over, it's now referencing column D, which it should be. Going to do that for the next couple of these, right? So I mentioned we're doing scatter plots in this class, which means we need X data points for our Y data points. So I'm arbitrarily assigning numbers to each of these data sets. So I'm just typing a number in and then clicking and dragging it down. So that way I don't have to do, 4, enter, 4, enter, 4, enter, save myself some time, do all this. All right. So what I'm going to plot is beaker, I'm assigning a value of 1. So all of these data points will be plotted as Y against these X values of 1. Graduated cylinder will be 2 against these Y values, 3 against these Y values, 4, etc. That is how it's done in the experiment document. The way that graph was constructed is in this manner. So you could put all of these into one column such that it's one giant sort of X values and Y values. So just to show you what I mean by that is come in here, insert, scatter plot. Oh, hey, look, there they are as 1s and 2s. And then you could label it, say, put text in this graph somewhere that says, okay, 1 represents the beaker, 2 represents the graduated cylinder, so on. I'm going to show you a different way to do it. At some point in the semester, you'll have to potentially add multiple lines to a graph. So I'm just going to show you how to do that now. So I'm going to select all this data really quick and go to insert. And every graph I said is going to be a scatter plot. So as I said in the video earlier, your interface might be a little bit different, but somewhere under insert or somewhere up here in these top toolbar options, there's something either called charts or graphs. And mine, it's under insert. And if I go to charts, here's a bunch of charts. If you hover over this, it says insert scatter XY chart. So I'm going to click that. There's a bunch of options. We can connect the dots, whatever. I'm just going to click the first one because we don't need the dots collected or connected. So I did this intentionally to show you what happens. This is a common mistake that people make. How Excel works is if you select a range of data, it plots the leftmost column as the X values and all of the columns to the right of that as Y values. So you'll notice there are 7 series, 7 different plots of data on here. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Y columns plotted against my 1 X column of 1s, right? You'll notice every single one of these data sets is plotted against a value of 1 right here, right? That's obviously not what we want. What we're trying to construct in this graph is to plot each of the glasswares against one another and see kind of how spread apart the data set is and how precise the glassware is relative to one another, right? So, also the data on my version of Excel, the X data is always denoted with a little purple box and the Y values are denoted with blue boxes. So your color might change depending on if you're Mac or PC or whatever. But all right, so I'm going to do the longer way of doing this, which will give us a really nice looking graph. So I'll select just one set of data I want to put on this graph, go insert, charts, cool. There's my data for the beaker. And now if you right click the graph, and this is my sort of tip for everything in Excel. If you want to edit something, right-click what you want to edit. And somewhere in this drop-down menu, you'll probably have options for what you want to do. So in this case, I want to select more data. And hey, here's series 1. You'll notice it's sort of highlighting it over here. I'm actually going to edit this and change the name to beaker rather than series 1. So that way I just know what it is. And I can also add more series. So I'm going to call this guy the graduated cylinder. The X values, I'm going to click and drag through my 2s. I'm going to delete this junk out of here, and I'm going to click and drag through the graduated cylinder data and click OK. Now you'll notice it's also popped up here. It's a different color. Sweet. I'm going to go ahead and add the other ones on. Series name, this is the graduated pipette. X values. And I'll point out while I'm doing this, the interface in Mac is a bit different in this part than PC. So just be aware when you go to like select data, your box, the little window that pops up is going to look different. But all of the things that I'm doing are in there. Just kind of spend some time hunting around for them. So now there's the third data set. Cool. I'm going to add the last one. So this is the volumetric pipette. X values, click and drag through those. Delete that equals 1 out of here, click and drag through. And now you'll notice I'm kind of clicking and dragging over data, and it's kind of hard to see where my like cursor is relative to the column cells. But I know these go to 22. So you'll notice it says equal sheet, and then it's referencing H2 to H19. So I can scroll through that until it reaches H22 displayed up there, and then hit OK. All right, so all 4 data sets are now on this graph. I'm going to close out of the select data source because I'm done adding data. And now we're going to add some labels to this. So you'll notice when I click the graph, my toolbar up top will change. And it's now giving me chart tools. I can add chart elements up here in the top left. I can add axes titles. I can add a chart title, right? Now, well, okay, so I arbitrarily assigned these values of 1, 2, 3, and 4. I could come down to this axes title and say, okay, 1 is graduated cylinder, right? I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is add a legend, and we'll do to the right of the graph, right? So now what it's displaying is the names of the data sets that I named them earlier in that data select data option, right? So the beaker's the blue, the graduated cylinder's the red, pipettes, right? To show you that's how you rename them, I'm going to go to select data. I'm going to change the beaker to just be random nonsense really quick and hit OK, right? Okay, now it's changed it to a dash to whatever, right? So that's how you can add names to your legends. I'm going to undo what I just did just by like either clicking the undo arrow or Control Z. But because I have this legend over here, and because these numbers are just arbitrary numbers that I made up to plot as X values, I'm actually just going to delete this axis entirely. It doesn't mean anything. This label here, this legend, is going to indicate to us which data set is which, right? So my axis title, right? What is this? This is density of I had Coke in lab. And anytime when relevant, you want to include units with your axes labels. So this is in grams per milliliter. Okay, cool. And then this graph, I don't want to title the chart the same thing as my axis. That's sort of redundant. It doesn't really serve a purpose. Your chart title should convey information to your audience that's new to them, that they're not going to find elsewhere in the graph, or that helps making interpret the graph easier, right? So this is about comparing the precision of glassware. So I'm just going to call it something like that. Yeah, sort of make your own title that makes sense. Now, I'm trying to compare the precision of these glassware. It's pretty obvious that the scatter in the data set gets smaller for the volumetric pipette, way more so than the beaker. If I wanted to exaggerate that point, I could edit this axis to spread this data more. So I'm actually going to do that because frequently your graphs that you generate in Excel will have a ton of dead space in them. So how you do that is select the axis, and then right click, again, my trick of right click the thing you want to change. And somewhere in here it is, format. And now over on the right, I've got a bunch of options. There's a bunch of aesthetic things in here. You can like change the color, the thickness of lines and whatnot. But I want to change the y-axis display so that the minimum isn't 0. It's, I don't know, I'm going to say 0.4. Right, so I'm going to come in here, delete this, 0.4. Oh, be nice if I actually hit the 4. And then if I click somewhere else or hit enter, it'll automatically shift the y-axis. I'm going to actually also change the maximum to be 1.1. Cool. So now there's less dead space on the graph. And in addition, I've sort of exemplified the amount of scatter in the beaker data relative to the volumetric pipette and the other pieces of glassware, right? So that's basically it for the first sort of part of your lab report, how to calculate stuff, how to create a graph that has multiple data sets on it, how to add legends to it, titles and whatnot. In part 2, we're going to talk about how to create a linear scatter plot and add a trend line and do linear regression on the data set. So go ahead and watch the second video.